Thank you, everybody. I think we can start. We have a bit of delay, but I hope we will finish everything up in time. So welcome everybody to today's panel. My name is Branka Rakic, and I will be moderating this panel. So the panel is about innovative medical devices, as you see. And we have ideal people for conversation. We have 4 innovative companies transforming healthcare and medical technology in their own unique way. So from breakthrough therapies to diagnostics, monitorings, and so on. So we would start with like a really brief introduction for each of one of you, and then 3 rounds of questions. And if we still have time, we can have questions from the audience. So let's start with Diego. Diego Stone is a co-founder and CEO of Qunity. They're really driving breakthrough innovation in drug discovery. This is not his first startup. He was in agribusiness before and still has the startup on that. He has over 7 years of experience in different deep tech startups. He holds a master's degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering, MBA in agribusiness from University of Sao Paulo. And thank you for coming. So the next speaker is Marko Grujic. He's a founder of Neuroblast and a pioneer in applying gaming and technology in rehabilitation in Serbia. He has a background in electronics and telecommunication. He has developed advanced solutions in IT and IoT industries. And his innovative work in rehabilitation technology has gained recognition and various prizes. So thank you, Marko.
Thank you.
So next speaker is Yanis Anastasiadis. I tried to be fast. He's a VP of Design and User Interface in Huma, UK company. He's experienced leader in design and user research, product development with a strong healthcare focus. He holds several senior roles in various companies besides Huma and Vetronic Digital Surgery. He holds a master's degree in the industrial design and bachelor in science in product and system design engineering. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And in the end, Željko Mladenovic, easier to pronounce. He's a director of software engineering and software architect at Histosonics, with over 25 years of experience in medical device software development. He holds a bachelor degree in computer science from University of Novi Sad, but he's in US since 2005. He specialized in medical devices innovation, FDA and ISO regulation, software engineering, cybersecurity, and so on. Thank you, Željko.
Glad to be here.
So in the first round, I wanted to give a chance to all of you to introduce what your companies are doing. So Diego, we can start with you. So I know it's really hard to simplify what Qunity is doing, but for somebody first time hearing, what is it actually doing and how is it transforming drug discovery?
Perfect. First of all, hvala na pozivu. That too much. But we are quantum tech, you might say. We're working with quantum electrochemical applications for drug discovery. So it might sound like a mouthful of words, but what we're doing at the end of the day is we are able to, through quantum electrochemistry, analyze the electric potential signature of different molecules interfering with one another. So kind of like we're measuring, like what you would do with a multimeter on your power outlet. We're doing that for pairs of molecules. And we're getting that electric potential signature from each of these interactions. And from this, we can get all sorts of binding affinity parameters, be it biochemical, biophysical, kinetic, and even thermodynamical ones. And we do so, and this is a piece of the equipment I just brought, just a tiny, let's say, part of the heart of what we're doing. So this is actually the slate, which on top of it, we have the microfluidic device we work on. But on top of this gold, this is a gold-plated, in this case glass, but the ones we work in the lab are silicon wafers. We're able to analyze these different molecules at a room temperature and room pressure, so at a very, let's say, accessible and cost-efficient way, and get all these sorts of parameters that nowadays are analyzed through usually optical devices that either cost too much or they have some issue with resolution. And with this new technology, we're able to reduce the cost drastically, like 80 to 90% most of the times, while retaining a very high resolution and precision. So this is a, let's say, in quantum You do have, like, say, the quantum computing side of it, which is getting lots of hype right now. There's also this area of quantum sensing that's getting lots of tractions. We are also part of the World Economic Forum uplink cohort for we won the quantum challenge this year. So we are bringing these other applications of quantum sensing, in this case for drug discovery and advanced diagnostics, to the market. And that is exactly what we're doing in Qnity. This actually started as a research collaboration with the University of São Paulo and University of Oxford for the past decade or so. And just a couple of years ago in 23, we founded a company. So we did a spin out of this collab, and we got it up and running. And now we have operations both in Brazil and the US, which is actually going to be our HQ starting in December, where we're getting some very nice grants from foundations, from the government, and from other entities to take this tech outside of the lab conditions which we're working on, and now into a real-world device for not only big pharma, but also smaller pharma companies, biotechs, and universities to work with.
Really interesting and really complicated,
Yes.
but you made it clear. So, Marco, can you tell us the story about your company, what Neuroblast does, and how did you start with that?
Yes, actually, Neuroblast was established in 2021 out of pure need. I'm a hardware software engineer, and before this, I mean, we still have that company. We made the largest IT network in this part of Europe. I was good with electronics and all that, but my wife got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis after the childbirth. So her condition started deteriorating really fast. And we found some specialized clinics for neurorehabilitations that include neuroplasticity and all that. But it was at first it was very good for her to work out and to do that kind of rehabilitation. But after 2 months after the clinic, and those clinics are very expensive, her condition started to getting back to the old, getting worse and worse. So I wanted to help her and to ask her what does she need to bring at least something from the clinics at home to ensure the continuity. So we went there to the clinics. I saw what we can do. We already had our production in Shenzhen, so with the previous startup. So then we had resources, and we made the first prototype, and she was starting working out at home, but we still need a lot of funding, so that's why the Neuroblast actually started after the StarTech. It's one of the first accelerators here in Serbia. And when we get the first funding, after that started, we were getting more and more grants and all that. And after a few years now, we grew up in the real company. We have a lot of employees, and we won on several competitions with EIT and Roche. We also won as most innovative startup in Emirates this year. So now we are starting to sell, and we are making the devices for home rehabilitation, and especially for children with cerebral palsy.
Very nice. And you will demonstrate your tools on
Yes, I brought
in Nikola Tesla room after this panel, so you can see it, and you make really rehabilitation looks easy or fun. That's I'm sure a big plus for patients.
Yes, they like it very much. I will tell a little bit more about it later.
Thank you. And Yanis, what are the core problems in healthcare that Huma is actually trying to solve with the technology? Where was the gap that you found? Place to fill in.
And so Huma, to start with, Huma makes it simple to build regulated medical applications that are all AI driven. How we do that and why actually we do this. We have seen the company is headquartered in London. What we have seen is that all the medical labs, they are built in isolation. So you see hospitals, you see clinics that there are very innovative solutions, but they stay isolated in the context that they have been designed and built for. Now, what Huma does is with a single foundation layer that we call Huma Cloud Platform. Everyone can build medical apps. We have a user interface that is open to anyone, from two people in a garage to a university team, but to a young startup as well, that they can configure a medical application and deploy it in days. The application will be a Class 2B EU MDR application in Europe or FDA in the US. The whole platform has been certified and is compliant. And what we're trying to do now is to bring all these technologies that have been built in isolation into a single foundation layer that we call Huma Cloud Platform, and allow others to build and scale their technologies. And at the moment, we have up to around 100 million patients across 400 different medical apps that have been built in using the Huma Cloud Platform. Our goal is to scale this across different services, across different countries and nations, and different clinics that need these solutions.
That's a quite different approach. So basically, your target are developers of apps, right? Not the
yes, this is one of the goals as well, to bring developers using our sandbox and our SDK to build their technologies across our platform.
Really interesting, thank you. And Željko, like what I saw and listened and read about histosonics, it's a pioneering, if it's true, in non-invasive approach to treatment cancer. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's a totally non-invasive approach for treatment of tumors, and basically, patients, with these, diseases, they, either need to undergo surgery, chemotherapy, or, some kind of, radiation therapy, where, recovery from surgery takes, long. You have other risks associated with, with surgeries. Chemotherapy, usually, leaves those patients, feeling miserable for, weeks, later, and, radiotherapy, those different modalities, they target, the tissue that, you want, but there is also, side effect of impact on, surrounding tissue. So, histotripsy, doesn't have any of those, side effects. It uses a focused ultrasound to cause acoustic cavitation at the, focal spot. So basically, you have like something this size of a grain of rice that we call bubble cloud. So, this sound that we emit pulls micro bubbles of gases that are naturally present in our body, and forms that kind of grain of rice, and that is basically it's kind of pulsing. It's very vigorous, and makes cells shrink and expand, and then eventually just burst. So it's mechanical ablation of unwanted tissue. And technology has been cleared by FDA in 2023 for treatment of liver tumors. We treated about 2,500 patients, so far in US and in Europe. Kidney trial has been completed. We should be submitting a FDA application beginning of next year. And there is currently a clinical trial going for pancreas in Barcelona. So that's initial trial that should hopefully lead to additional trials, and hopefully commercial product in 2027.
Wow, this is what I actually wanted to ask next. Is there a different organ that you're interested in? That's great. Yeah. So now we would like to kind of deeper insight of what your companies are doing, what you're doing. So Diego, I mean, you and Marco, you're more of a startup, and as a startup and really cutting edge technology, what is the path that you have to now pass from a prototype to major pharmaceutical labs, which I guess it's one of your goals?
Yes, great question, Branka. So basically, we're doing several proof of concept validations right now. Mm-hmm. Some of them with big pharmas, some of them with universities, and some of them with smaller pharma companies. Because since these are our target customers and potential partners, we wanted to work with all of them in different applications of this tech. For instance, we're working right now with Merck KGaA, the German Merck, not the American one, and they're working on library screening, which is a very interesting application that they have. Basically, the idea is to screen libraries of theirs and of their partners, as in to understand and identify potential molecules for their research purposes or research theses they have. That is number one. Number two, for instance, is one we're working with smaller pharma. It's a biopharma actually from Arizona, and they're developing their own AI drug discovery tool. And one of the issues they have run when they're doing this sort of development is that the existing technology with which they would validate their model is expensive. So how do you validate a lot of data, and how do you validate a lot of outputs from your algorithm if the tech you need to validate it with would be prohibitive in cost-wise? So that is why we're working with them, so that since our tech is very much cheap in comparison to whatever they have in place, plus it's also rapid and easy scalable, we're working in developing this coupling of our tech with their models, so that as to validate whatever outputs of the model they're developing in a quick and a cost-effective way. So working with these potential target customers has been a way we have gotten, not only as to get funding, because it has provided us with funding, but also to get traction and get market validation, which we believe is a crucial step for what we're doing right now, which is getting the prototypes ready. So simultaneously to that, we are developing with then federal institutions back in Brazil the fully commercial prototype. We can do this in the lab, but it's a Frankenstein on the bench, so it's not commercially sellable. But what we are doing right now is putting the Frankenstein in a box, let's say, and making that box not only beautiful, but also with a nice user interface and user experience.
And so, as somebody coming from AI Institute, I really appreciate that you actually think about developing AI models and need to test. But then what is really cool about it is, and you told me yesterday, do you need to have an expertise to use the chip?
Yes, we don't need a very deep expertise, because since we're designing this equipment to be pretty much easily handled, our go-to target is for a lab technician to be able to operate this. Current equipment like SPR technology needs usually a very well-trained PhD to operate. And that also accrues to all the costs the companies have in terms of personnel, in terms of training that they need to work with. So by allowing this to be a very easy and approachable tool, like for example ELISA is, which is kind of like our benchmark into what we're doing, we want this to be pretty much reached by all different audiences, all different markets which are working in this area of biotech.
Great, thank you. And Marco, I mean, you said it's basically a home device for home rehabilitation. How then you reach the patients? Do you need a doctor's prescription, or anybody can purchase it? Or?
Well, yeah, it is our main intent was for people, and especially people with neurodegenerative diseases and kids with cerebral palsy, to use it at home. But at first you need to start from the clinics. So we right now Neuroblast is it can be found in 4 clinics here in the region, in 2 largest ones, in Belgrade and in Niš and in Zagreb. So we had really good feedback in the past 6 months, where because the kids loved it, because we are not doing something especially new. Gamified rehabilitation is here for at least 7 or 8 years. I mean, when it became popular, but in the last 4 or 5 years, the clinics and physiotherapists understood that it is really effective. And especially for the children, when there is not only that dimension of working out and physical rehabilitation, there is always a very important component with mind and the happiness to enjoy the rehabilitation, and then they will want to do rehabilitation. Right now, we know in some clinics, in example, making the kids work out with you know, that some of the boring workouts, and then they promise them you will have a neuroblast for an hour and a half if you finish this. They're like, okay, I will go through this, you know, and then so. But yes, our main intent was to make, because Maria's idea, my wife's, because she's the CEO of the company, her idea was to replicate something that is already in the clinics, but to be possible to use it at home, because she needed, and we know a lot of people need it. There is a really grim statistics, because from 2013 up to 2023, there is 25% of increase of multiple sclerosis diagnosis. So it's terrible. And then we presented neuroblast at the Neuroscience Institute in New York. And then we, because myself, I'm also the software engineer, so we work a lot with AI. And we are using in some, let's say, really useful ways for us. In example, they told us in USA that we need to localize everything we have for a lot of different languages that they need, because they have around 3,000 or 4,000 patients per month. So they're like, nobody knows what's happening there. So we need to have some telemetry, which brings us to certification. Well, we did it, and we also now we are using AI for our therapies and specialized video games to go much better with the behavior of in example of the child and everything, to try to learn from it and to make his therapy for that day, because with neurodegenerative diseases you never know how your day is going to be. Sometimes it's going to be better, sometimes it's going to be worse. If it's hot, it will be terrible. But the AI will notice how you are doing today and will try to make the game, and it will create. We are now have our own LLMs that are creating the world for the kid, because when he's playing the video game will literally making itself on the spot and provide him with the best experience. So it is always interesting for the kids or for the people. So in total, that is what we are doing now. We have we finished with CMDR certification, but in order to sell it much more easily, we will see, because we want to get to the people homes. For the clinics, it's easy. We saw it to the clinics. They already saw it, and they will just buy it, and they already bought it and used it. So it was easy sell.
Yeah, and everybody has AI. It's strange, Yanis, that you're not using AI in your platform. So Yanis, like now we heard like everybody changed the way of their working or product in way development. So what is your insight like from the beginning till now, how the platform is shaped through the experience in the past?
Yes. So of course, many of the workflows that we have delivered through the cloud platform have been optimized in a way that today we are using AI, we are using artificial intelligence. The platform is also fully regulated, so all these algorithms have been validated and they are compliant to use. Some examples include, for instance, clinical note-taking, that when you have a platform for remote patient monitoring, clinical notes are very important from the nursing staff. So AI is looking all of that data and then creates a summary report to be integrated with the EHR. Another way that is also available to everyone is that our users can interact with the cloud platform with AI, with a simple prompt. So they can type the application they need. If a group of researchers need a diabetes monitoring solution, they can describe what they need, and then the AI will generate that. But of course, because we are operating in the medical sector, everything needs a confirmation of the user at the end. So we cannot publish to patients without the doctor confirming that this is the right application to do. And now, how do we want to scale these technologies, and how we have seen that so far it has worked? So we definitely need partnerships, and we definitely need to learn from others. And this is why we have created this Innovators Hub, where people, developers, but also people with less development knowledge can actually utilize the platform and continue building their solutions on the Huma Cloud platform. You can also see it as a marketplace where people can bring their technologies and then scale it with the large hospitals that we all already work with, but also more client base.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And Željko, for histosonics, what was I mean, now I hear that you will have already now in trials for other diseases, but what's the path for integrating from the development till now? And how, and also since it's so new, how was the medical community accepting it? Was it easy?
Yeah, so basically the company was founded in 2009, so it took a while to get here, because simply when you have truly novel technology, you have the longest possible regulatory path. So, you have to jump through every single hoop that, FDA, puts there, for you. So, basically, we got that clearance in, 2023, and currently our device is in 9 out of 10 biggest, cancer centers in U.S. And I think, when it comes to, adoption, this physician that we are working with in Barcelona, Dr. Vidal Jovet, is one of the most famous surgical oncologists. Basically, there is a video of him on our website where he says that he's been waiting for this all his life. Because, he knows all other, modalities and, limitations, and this, solves most of these, issues that he has with other, devices. So, basically we have about 100, devices currently, sold, and, planning to do with all of these other, applications, including, breast cancer, prostate, and eventually, brain. Thing is that, that will be still, again, the, de novo path with, FDA when it comes to, regulatory submission. But we hope that, we already checked some boxes with FDA with this first clearance, so that we don't get as many questions, as we did for this, initial submission.
It must be very motivated to have a testimonial from the doctor that he's waiting for this all his life. So it must be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, patient, testimonials also, really amazing. So, we don't lack, motivation, definitely. Just can't get, all these things, out on the market.
Yeah, and you're pioneer in that, right?
Yes, yeah, this technology was invented at University of Michigan, and basically the company was founded to commercialize that, technology.
Very nice, thank you. So we still have some time, so I would like to use it to look forward in the future, like where do you see yourselves? So Diego, you talking mostly about application in the lab for drug design and affinity binding. Do you see it in clinical adoption potentially in future?
Yes, Marika, definitely. So this is actually on the, let's say, on the long road ahead, something we've been looking at. Because since we're working with quantum electrochemical sensing, we're working actually with microelectronics. And one of the good, let's say, advantages of microelectronics is the capability of miniaturization. And that allows for multiple different applications in diagnostics, not only in, let's say, point-of-care diagnostics, but also in precision diagnostics. Which is something that our technology can convey because of all the inherent precision and sensitivity it brings in with. So this is actually one of the things we have been discussing with some hospitals, leading hospital in Latin America, Albert Einstein Hospital. We have been talking to some other players in the UK, here in Europe as well, in Belgium. We have been talking to IMAC and all these other players who are working either with devices or have been looking a lot into diagnostics or focused on diagnostics for this, like, say, medium to long-term potential use of the tech. We haven't gone to diagnostics as our go-to-market, mostly because of FDA hassles and FDA approvals, which is something that takes a long time to get it done. So we have picked the drug discovery side of things because it's much quicker. We're going to have our first commercial prototypes ready next year, and we can start like pre-sales. And that would not happen if we had any sort of FDA approval process.
I know, but then you don't need an FDA approval, because if they submit this for the drug FDA approval, they need to use tool that is already FDA approved or not?
No, because we're working with a technology, kind of like a lab equipment at the end of the day. A very advanced one, but a lab equipment. So this we don't need any sort of special regulatory approval, because we're not working directly on clinical trials, but actually on, you could say, early stages of preclinical analysis. And that is one of the advantages, at least we have, in terms of go-to-market timing when using this tech.
Yeah, you have luck there.
Yes.
And Marco, where are you now? Like, where is Neuroblast now, and where you would like to be in future, like 5 years, let's say?
Well, right now we started we started with pre-sale, and the first we started with production of the pre-orders that we got. So in some 45 to 60 days, the first Neuroblasts will start to be delivered. As I said, in 4 clinics we already have Neuroblasts. So the feedback is amazing, and they're asking for more because they booked it for like 4 months in advance. With one of the what would be our next natural step is how can we help even more with people like my wife, and with AI. That would be some kind of exoskeleton. We already started working on it. The problem will be, of course, the approvals, because exoskeleton would need a lot of approvals especially for the home use. But we will see how can we classify it to be like a brace and not. But the most important thing is that we know what to do, and together with our, I think, best clinic for neurorehabilitation from niche Neuromedic. They want us to work together. They already have all the accreditations for doing the clinical research for UK, USA, and all that. They are already doing a lot of clinical research. So they offer to help us, however they could, because they see that something like that doesn't cost, because there are those exoskeletons in the market, but they cost like 70, 80, 150K just only for one leg, like brace. So our target price is, because they saw with Neuroblast we did basically the equipment that they paid for, in example, 40 or 50K, we made it for 2. So they're like, okay, let's do all kinds of stuff then together, and give it to the people, and we will help you develop it with our clinicians and our research. So we will join forces with them in the next month or 2. We will publish. So that is our next natural step, to work with close with the best clinics with neurorehabilitation.
Such an exciting response, because I didn't expect that you're developing something new. I was more expecting you wanted to be, but
yes,
actually have new plans.
When you're a startup, you don't have a lot of time if you don't have a lot of grants to develop. So you have some time, and after that you need to go to the market, or you will give away all your equity. So let's try to to go to the market and develop something new, because life is short. So there is only, and there is so much with today's technology. There is so much to do, and so much to make, especially with AI, to help you out to give the best product as it can be. So something with predictive and preventive stuff is amazing.
Right. And Yanis, like, where do you see Huma? What is the main goal? And how do you foresee the, like, a future of healthcare with tools that we have?
Yes, and we have a very big mission, which is to enable every nation, every country to use an instance of the cloud platform, of the Huma cloud platform, to deliver some sort of digital health service. Now, this can be a full primary care unit. It could be end-to-end patient care. It really depends on the context that we are designing. Now, we are also growing, and it is in our pipeline to bring more AI technologies and AI algorithms in the platform. And this happens through partnerships. It happens through our internal AI team at Huma. As we have all mentioned, to get them compliant and EU MDR, FDA approved, it takes time. But we really believe that AI can streamline lots of different services in healthcare, from clinical monitoring to administrative tasks, but also to provide some personalized insights to patients so that they self-manage their disease and their condition in better ways. Now, how we can do that is something very, very complex. We work with different governments already. We have deployed our solution in EU countries, in the UK as well, in the US. It takes time, and it's being built with the right partnerships and bringing teams together with a same goal to enable this AI first and patient first care.
And since you said working with government, so what is the readiness of I don't know, like digitalized healthcare system that you can apply, or do you have like your tool?
Yeah.
Do you have like a threshold? Like, do you know where you can do it or not?
There are instances that we see lots of legacy systems that take interoperability a bit. It slows down the interoperability. I think it starts from the motivation and the strategic approach of its government, but also government bodies that have ownership on this. And it can be fully replaced, which is very, very difficult, but it can also come next to an instance of the cloud platform and then allow, through the data layer and through the right technologies, to deploy a new solution to a country. So we have seen in some instances that innovation takes a bit more time because education and training are also very important and critical to this. But we also see more progressive people, more progressive bodies that take initiatives, and they have really built, you know, this patient-first approach where data flows amongst all the different parties in a seamless way.
So basically saying where there is a will, there is a way, right?
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
That's good to hear. And Željko, when you already mentioned that there are new indications that you are now in the process of approval and thematic clinical trials, what are the goals in the future for you?
Yeah, so the idea is to, go into, different indications, but as well to try to expand the, patient, population that, we can treat. Because we have, basically physician has to mark the area that they want to treat. And they have a live ultrasound, where they can, visualize that. And, depending on which organ you are looking at, you can't necessarily visualize, everything that you need. So kind of adding advanced tools to visualize the target, like, fusion with, CT or MRI, using, tissue segmentation and, advanced image processing, techniques like that should allow us to, have that planning process, improved, because, later on that plan is, treated with pretty much automatically, because, software populates that area with mesh of points, and then robotic arm kind of drives the, therapy transducer through every single point to ensure that therapy is being delivered. And then, we also want to monitor that, therapy in real time, because it sounds, while, you can't necessarily hear it, with some hardware, you can actually hear it, what's going on in the human body, and kind of have an idea, how much of that energy is ended up on desired location, and how much is blocked by bone, and basically make adjustments real time, during the therapy. And ideally, we'll be able to tie the specific treatment to clinical outcomes once we have enough data, so that we can say, well, with this treatment, we expect you to be, I don't know, 2 years cancer-free, or something along those lines.
Really nice. I mean, we are lucky that we have people using technology for healthcare, which I think it's the best thing to do. And so we have 2 minutes because it's here 4, no? So maybe if we have questions from the audience, I'll leave it to them. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have questions from the audience, I have questions. Just one. Because we heard so many times now, like FDA regulation or whatever regulation, and takes time and slows down. So, like really short, are you then thinking that we are over-regulating it? Or you think it's just enough amount of regulation?
That's a great question. Hopefully there's no one from any regulatory body who can hear my response to it. But I do think there is lots of improvements that we can do in terms of regulatory efficiency. Hopefully AI and all these other data-driven tools are going to be helping us out in doing so. Because yes, we do need regulations, that's obvious. We don't need anything that doesn't work or has like some nasty side effects to get approved. But there's a lot of bureaucracy that goes on and around the process, which can be trimmed down. So I do believe there is lots of room for improvement in terms of regulatory efficacy and efficiency, and hopefully that takes place in the following 10 years, decade or so, with all these improvement in data-driven sciences and data-driven tools that will allow for this to happen.
Marco is nodding. Do you agree?
Yes, yes. As Diego said, especially I think it's well, it's of course it's needed, but it's definitely over-regulated for devices class 1 and class 2, because it's usually not invasive and everything, and we need to do a lot of papyrology for something that not even sometimes doesn't come in contact with the human body. So I mean, it's not it's not normal to spend a year for trying to regulate, and it's really expensive. So I know, because we finished with CE-MDR, and after a few months we got it for both of our devices. But now I'm really scared. What are we going to do for the exoskeleton? Because can we afford? I mean, we will make it. It will work great. But can we afford to commercialize it? So that's the question.
Yanis, your impression?
Very, very important points, the ones mentioned. I think we definitely need regulations. I think, especially in Europe, the EU MDR is very solid in regards to what it's asking from the companies. Now, what I have seen, and due to my role at Huma, I have been part of the journey to regulate fully the company. And I'm also internal SME at Huma. What I have seen is that I believe that the regulations need innovation as well, because sometimes they are written for physical products, hardware products, and talk about digital products, which it's very, very different what you deliver to the end user. So I think that we need them, and we need to innovate on the regulations themselves now. And I think that if we look on the software itself, it will become it's shorter, it will become faster, it will become reusable, which is another point that we can take advantage on the regulations, because if there is something already regulated, one can claim that I can reuse this, for instance. So yeah, that's how I believe we can improve those as well, but we definitely need them.
Yeah, we all agree at it. And Željko, from your CV, it sounds like you're an expert in that. Yeah,
over time I developed a huge appreciation for regulations. I think that when you look at it from the company's perspective, pretty much everyone will say it's too much burden. From the patient perspective, you want to know that the treatment you're getting is safe. So But at the end of the day, most of these regulations, if you kind of take a step back and you analyze, things, they're mostly like, best practices. Like, for example, software development, you can, really, slice it, dice it to, best practices for, software development, and, so on. I mean, at least in US, FDA, kind of works with, industry to get, feedback on, these regulations. And sometimes, the industry is ahead of, regulations. For example, head of our, research is also in IEEE committee for focused ultrasound, standard, because, we are way ahead of, standards, there. So I think kind of finding that, balance and partnership between, industry and, regulatory bodies is probably the fastest way to move forward.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you for the speakers, and thank you all for coming. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, or at least a bit as I did. Thank you again.
Thank you, Branka.
Yeah.
yeah, everyone can hear me now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess it's easier with this one. Thank you all for coming, especially after lunch. Yeah, and I know we have 3 sessions in parallel, so thank you for choosing this one. My name is Ivan Tanasijevic, and in this session I'll be here to moderate the conversation on AI in drug development with the topic of modeling life with AI. So just quickly, my background is in mathematics, so I just wanted to say that I wouldn't be here if AI didn't make a huge boom in pharmaceutics. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here at the Biotech Future Forum. I've been here as a participant and on the panel, and now I'm moderating a panel. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but now we're going to talk about AI in drug discovery. We have a very interesting group of people here covering drug development and drug discovery from a wide range of angles, from the industry, from academia, from IT, from ML specialists, from pharmaceutical industry. Essentially, we are going to split the discussion into 2. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the current state of AI in drug discovery, and then we're going to have a little jump to the future and see what are the challenges, where are we headed with AI in drug discovery. So give me just a second. I'm going to introduce our esteemed panelists. So let's go from closest to me to the furthest from me. We have Srđan Mlađenović as a business unit executive for data and AI in Comtrade system integration. He's an IT professional with over 2 decades of experience in technical pre-sales, business development, and software project implementation. And in his current role, he leads a team of over 50 engineers and oversees successful delivery of complex data and AI projects and services. He finished his undergrad as a computer scientist in Novi Sad and then a master in biomedical engineering. And an interesting thing about the Comtrade company is that in partnership with the government of Serbia, they are working on e-health records in Serbia. Very interesting point. Next, we have Dr. Vladimir Gligorijević, Senior Director of AI/ML at Genentech. His background is, well, as a specialist in ML AI, but before that he was a physicist until master's, then got his PhD at Imperial College London, working on machine learning applications to protein and genome annotation software applied to, yes, and then, by the way, he is my boss, so I'll be very careful. Not many people have that pleasure and opportunity to ask their boss questions like this. He co-founded Prescient Design whilst he was at a postdoc at Flatiron Institute on several machine learning approaches to macromolecular design that got incorporated into Roche family and large molecule drug discovery. Next, we have Dr. Dimitrios Georgopoulos. Okay, good pronunciation.
Good.
Head of Mid-Europe at Merck Healthcare, previously Senior Vice President, and I'm not going to list all the steps in the pharmaceutical industry, but that's interesting because he was a Senior Vice President in neurology, Head of Neurology and Immunology. Just sort of a background, and since he has been in the pharmaceutical industry over 15 years, since 2009, with background as a doctor of medicine, and he has been educating himself in business management as well, and hasn't stopped since. So the degrees just keep piling up. And on the very right, looking from your side, we have Professor Dr. Mine Orlu, Professor of Pharmaceutics at the University College of London in UK. At the UCL School of Pharmacy, she specializes in developing advanced drug delivery systems to improve therapies for vulnerable patient groups. And one interesting point is that she leads interdisciplinary research on healthy aging as a key figure in the Celebrate. Am I pronouncing that okay? Because it's one of those acronyms, you're never sure. Network that connects the PIs meant to facilitate that. She chairs a lot of committees and groups at UCL, but most notably the Devices and Diagnostics Therapeutics Innovation Network, fostering collaboration in healthcare innovation. Her background is in pharmaceutical sciences so that was her goal ever since undergrad, and then PhD, postdoc, and now a professor in pharmaceutical, the School of Pharmacy. So I think I might have used up too much time, but anyway, it's after lunch, so we still haven't had our coffee. We're going to start talking about the state of AI in pharmaceutical industry, and we're going to start with Dr. Georgiopoulos. So the first question for you is, can you share some examples with us at how Merck uses AI in the process of drug development?
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you to the organizers for inviting Merck and me representing my company in the panel. Thank you all that you made it after lunch in this room. I like a competition. I don't know how the other rooms are, but this room seems pretty full. So I am proud that in Merck we are pioneering in our willingness to really run the next generation of clinical trials and use AI as much as possible. We have several examples. I would start from the most recent one that comes from the field that I was heading before my new role. In neurology, we had recently announced a collaboration with Skyhawk Therapeutics. And this collaboration is about us identifying targets and giving them to them so that they do RNA targeting, small molecule identification. So they use AI-modulated RNA splicing to find potential candidates for the targets that we are providing. And then we go through AI selection, and some of them, hopefully, will enter a preclinical and clinical phase. This is one example. Second example, we have what we call Edison drug discovery software, where we are exploring a vast space, chemical space, for generating new ideas and identifying potential, again, molecules that we can bring into further stages of drug discovery. This would not be possible to do without AI technology, obviously. Third example is in one of our other sectors. At Merck, we have a special structure. We have 3 sectors. We are 3 companies under one company. And we have a life science sector. In the life science sector, maybe many of you scientists have been customers of our life science sector, because we are supplying a lot of consumables in laboratories. And we have also announced recently in this sector a collaboration with Siemens. So, and the aim, as our CEO says, is to move faster from an idea from a lab to a treatment to a patient. And in this collaboration, we are merging our softwares and systems with the vast Siemens digital ecosystem, so that we can identify through AI potential gaps in the workflow and in the manufacturing of drug discovery. By identifying them, of course, then we will bring solutions. And then a fourth component is an AI-enabled synthetic data generation. We use a lot of processes in the background for protocol optimization, for secondary analysis of existing databases, where we can identify, for example, where things went wrong sometimes, or we can identify optimal dosing, different dosing. We do synthetic control arms, and we simulate the behavior of a synthetic control arm to understand and predict how the actual real-world patient arm will function in the trial. All these are technologies that currently we are pioneering, and I think it's a good first step. I was very intrigued from the morning session about the next level of clinical trials, but maybe we can talk about this later.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Wonderful answer. Yes, I mean, we've seen a lot of new technologies, but what you just mentioned, I think we can leave that for the future of AI. So with the next question, I would ask Dr. Grigorievic, in what areas of drug discovery have you seen most success? And can you sort of relate that to how AI was actually able to help decode this biological complexity and answer big scientific questions that we haven't been able to address before?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, first of all, yes. Also, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here and to talk about how we are using AI to revolutionize the drug discovery processes in my company, in Genentech. Yeah, I would like, basically, I think there is right now an awesome ongoing work in AI in almost every part of drug discovery process. I've seen amazing work in target discovery and validation with a lot of genomics data, cell perturbation data, and a lot of machine learning models that are kind of trained to learn the causal relationships between genes to understand exactly, how if you perturb one part of the pathway, what happens with the cell, with the disease. And so there's quite a lot of innovative ideas there. Lead discovery and lead optimization as a next step in drug discovery. There's quite a lot of work there, and I think generative AI is making a lot of impact there, especially because generative AI can explore that space of all possible molecules much more effectively than a human being right now, or how it's done right now in a typical drug discovery process. And of course, beyond optimization, lead optimization, and going even into preclinical study and clinical study, there's also a lot of ongoing work where a lot of machine learning models are trained on pharmacokinetics data, or they can be used to predict some of the safety risks, or let's say immunogenicity risks. So there's a lot of machine learning models that I've seen that have been used, trained on internal proprietary company data and used in the company in these different stages of drug discovery process. But I have to speak from my own experience here and the way how we do things in Genentech, and I would say that the major, I guess, the impact that I've seen of AI is in actual lead identification and lead optimization. And this is often the process I'm going to try to describe is as simple as possible, right? So whether you're dealing with a large molecule or biologics or an antibody or a small molecule, right? You're trying to make some changes to the molecule, whether it's a chemical group or some amino acid, trying to improve the molecule for a specific property, such that you can reach something we call TCP, or target candidate profile, at the end. And the ways of exploring how many possible components or fragments you can put there together or change the molecule so that you get a better molecule, it's huge. We call that a huge combinatorial space. And the way how we deal with that huge combinatorial space is by using generative AI. And that's basically what it's trained on a lot of data. And then the generative AI can actually help us optimize and navigate through that space much faster to find the best lead candidate. And so this is something that we are currently using in almost every portfolio project on large molecules and small molecules in Genentech, that it's kind of really accelerating that lead identification or lead optimization step, and really making significant changes right now in almost each of these projects.
Great, thank you. I'm also happy to hear that it's some of the stuff that I work on. I'm not getting obsolete. Yeah. It's good. I'm working on the right stuff. So with the next question, I would address Professor Orlu. So your research area of patient-centric medicine development was one of those that felt a lot of impact from maybe not just the AI boom per se, with the hardware and everything, but also just from collecting vast amounts of data. So from the viewpoint of an academic in pharmaceutical sciences, I would be interested to hear what were the most crucial discoveries or breakthroughs, and how successfully did those translate into practice in your field?
Thank you very much. I first would like to echo My fellow speakers on the panel for thanking the organizers for selecting this afternoon's theme, and many thanks to you for selecting us and being with us in this session. I think this is really exciting. It has been longer than 20 years, I think, since I graduated, and speaking about doing a PhD in something modeling, even mathematics, like in pharmaceutical sciences, somebody was talking about fear in mathematics, and that was a challenge. And now people are competing, to do a PhD research with me on AI and machine learning technologies in terms of its very important application in the pharmaceutical industry as well for their employability, I think, in the future. And many thanks for your very kind introductions. I generally introduce further myself when I speak with a diverse audience because I think I'm a medicine designer. I'm the one who is shaping the medicine that you are using. So just to follow the very important points that my colleagues just made on the panel, the lead applicant, the lead molecule is really important. You really need to understand these target receptor interactions, where I really respect to my colleagues who have experience in pharmaceutical chemistry. I'm not a chemist, I'm a pharmacist by training, and I'm the person who is manufacturing, who is formulating the medicine. So I refer to the selection of the safe excipient, the effective excipient. I'm talking about the excipient if you would like to target your molecule to a certain area in the body. I'm talking about changing the consistency of that liquid medicine, or I'm talking about changing the size, the shape, the geometry, and the dose of the medicine if you are really thinking about a patient-centric delivery systems. So as a medicine designer, to follow the trend, I think we are very proud to say that we have been one of the first academic groups looking into the AI and machine learning technologies in formulation design. Just to exemplify from the recent PhD projects, for instance, we looked into the dose finding, and we developed an open access platform called Dose Tailor, where you can include all this information from their clinical background, and I refer to another individual patient where we talk about comorbidities, where they are exposing to loss of drug-drug interactions because of the other prescriptions that they are using, also the formulation type that they use, and we intentionally did it on a model. We selected immunosuppressant, where the clinicians need to change the dose multiple times and where they need to monitor the dose. So when you enter all this information, it gives you the ideal dose response curves, where you can feed this type of information into an additive manufacturing, like 3D printing platform. So it's kind of, our approach is connecting all these emerging technologies in this, for instance, the machine learning technology for dose finding to feed into that 3D printing platform to really enable the on-demand manufacturing, if you like, one day, hopefully, in the corner of the hospital or clinics or even a pharmacy. Another example we did was around food effect, and we try to understand, what about if you have a new molecule, considering that majority of the medicine is administered via oral route. What about the food effect? Can you just minimize the number of clinical trials when you are talking about the absorption profile of your new drug molecule? And would it be decreasing, increasing, or no effect on the oral absorption of your drug molecule? And we try to understand various machine learning technologies if I can understand the drug-food interaction early on, very early on in this pipeline in the drug development process. And if I may add one more example, that very thankfully we were funded by Horizon 2020 funding. We look into the two-way dialogue in brief between the gut microbiota and the orally administered drug molecules, including JAK inhibitors, for instance, in that example, because it's so interesting to understand that what drugs do on the gut microbiota to your healthy microbiota. Would it really affect the function? Would it really affect the growth of this healthy microbiota that you have in your system? Because yes, you are trying with your probiotics and things, and we talk about the healthy aging in the earlier session, but what about the drugs that you are using, especially if you are on a chronic disease treatment for years and years? And on the other hand, what these drugs do to the metabolism of these important therapeutic molecules. And the final point I would like to add that I have been working for academia, I think over 24 years now, since my graduation, and I have never worked for a company, so it means that I have less access to data. So I don't have that big pool of data. Of course, very great thanks to researchers who are very generous to provide me this supplementary information in this peer-reviewed scientific articles, where the food effect study relied on over 300 drug-food interactions, known interactions, for us to predict the drug-food effect. But in this gut microbiota drug interaction project, we used the active machine learning. Literally, we trained our system on the known interactions of the 7 excipient and gut microbiota lactobacillus interactions, and we were able to predict 111 kind of interactions on the basis of this active machine learning with the in-house data. I'm not saying it's the best approach, but it is giving us still time and energy to do more research in the lab, even in academia. So it's promising.
Great, thank you. Wonderful examples. If you don't mind, I know we have a lot of people from academia here in Serbia in the audience, so I think they might be interested in a slight follow-up to your answer. The platform that you mentioned for the dosage, who do you see as the end user? Are the clinicians using it, and how does that work?
I think every stakeholder should understand their role, especially if we are talking about AI and machine learning, because I was listening to a podcast on my way to here, and that was more about a general discussion if people would be losing their jobs, if they don't basically use AI. I think it's not about using, but at least understanding where you can responsibly use these AI technologies. So in a way, I think, yes, the clinician doesn't necessarily need to know the coding part, if you like, but they need to understand the applications. If you speak with a data scientist, I think their job is to provide us the representative sample set, because I remember the conversations about the physiologically based PK/PD modeling, for instance, and the representative data sets. I think the same applies when you speak about the big data, because we have been in a project and the data imputation techniques that people are using are various, and you need to make sure that you complete these blanks especially in your healthcare data records correctly if you really would like to rely on your prediction technologies. So I think bringing the same language to all the stakeholders, in this example, like a life scientist like I am, a clinician, a mathematical modeling expert, this is critical, and really understanding what we can add into the main picture.
Great, thank you. And sorry to bother you with a follow-up. But yeah, so I think with that we can wrap up the part about the current state of AI and the examples, and now we're kind of moving into the future and the outlook on where we're going with this. And somewhere in between, probably closer to the present, I have the question for Mr. Mlađenović. So we mentioned in the introduction the project of establishing e-health records in Serbia. So I would like to ask you, what would be the most challenging parts of actually enabling that the existence of this data to be successfully translated into innovations?
Yes, thank you for your question, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm, as you can see, have a different background. I'm coming from system integration, and maybe I will be kind of a bad guy in this panel, because I will talk about some obstacles, some problems, how to get this real-world data, especially in Serbia, in our context, to the table and to be able to use it in that sense. And I think we made a great introduction about this in previous conversation. So basically, when we are talking about electronic health records and e-prescription and these centralized systems, they are very good as a starting point, but probably we have some kind of constraints regarding interoperability and availability of other data. For example, in our hospital information system, we have different providers, different data sets, different data models, different structures, which are not all used and available at the moment for this part. Also, in that sense, we have a whole part of private health, which is silo for itself. So it's essentially we are not using this data anyhow in this kind, and this is something what should be overcome in the future in order to come to something what could be research grade data in that sense, which we have discussing. Also, as you previously mentioned, we used to find a lot of data with missing values, with some free-form text, without some kind of standardization. And essentially, this makes a problem to use this data. And of course, AI, generative AI could help to make some classification, to fill up these gaps, to improve and somehow speed up this process of improving data quality in that sense. So this is also one of the opportunity for AI. Second part, which is also, I think, kind of problem and challenge, is related to regulation and regulatory aspects. For example, many of we need from patients some kind of consent for this secondary usage of this data. This is something what I'm not sure how we are covering, at least in our current regulation. And this is necessary part to use it, and of course data are not anonymized, are not identified. We have to do this job on some kind of infrastructure, in some data lake houses, in some data management procedures, in order to be able to use this data in that area. So basically, this is maybe, as I said, bad guy, because I'm talking about more about problems, but I think we will have opportunity to discuss about how to move forward from these problems to something what is more usable for research.
Yeah, well, thank you. I did say we're going to discuss challenges, and those are some challenges there that you mentioned. So now moving further into the future, I have a question for Dr. Georgopoulos. So what have been the biggest challenges in the drug development process that Mark has faced so far, and how can AI easily help to, how can it help to bring the treatments to patients faster?
Yeah, the biggest problem in when you run clinical trials is that we have to realize that this is a long process that costs a lot of money. And then in the end, the probability of success in some therapeutic areas like neurology, still it's at the toss of a coin, 50%. So just to give you a bit of numbers and a bit of perspective on what I'm saying, there are different reports estimating the total cost of drug development from idea to launch. Some say $2.6 billion, some say $1.6 billion, some $1 billion, but I think we can agree that $1.5 to $2 billion could be a rough estimate of the total cost of a protein structure that you see on your laptop to launch. And this process takes 12 to 14 years. And then in the end, even by doing all steps that are necessary, you end up in a probability of success of 50%. You can imagine that more and more this process is becoming a little bit unattractive for investors and companies to invest, right? Because you invest a lot of money for a long period and still you have low probability of success. So this is the biggest problem in a nutshell. And of course, in this problem, there are several steps that are contributing, right? Because drug development is a complex process, starting from drug discovery and many stages that Professor Orlu has described, and then you go to clinical phase, right? I'll give you another example that is a little bit hard to understand how we are still making it wrong. Clinical trial site selection. 30% of activated sites are not recruiting. So 1/3 of your money that you are investing for clinical trial site activation is not paying off, yeah? And we see that the high enrollment sites are contributing 4 times more enrollment than the average sites. So how do we optimize clinical trial site selection? This is one area that AI can definitely help. So in the past, what we were doing, we were having our clinical trial teams that had their own experience, their own acquaintances, some relationships with investigators, or we were going to CROs and we were asking for their own lists, but this is an obsolete process. It should be already obsolete, right? Because we have all the data in place to have an AI-enabled, optimized clinical trial site selection. You put together historical data of a trial, in the same therapeutic area, same indication, and so on. You put together clinical trial site data that are existing in terms of quality of data, in terms of PI experience, staff available, and then you get through list of AI optimized clinical trial sites. And then even if you accelerate recruitment by 6 months, the net value that the company is taking in the portfolio is $400 million by accelerating recruitment by 6 months. So we're talking about massive figures and interventions that can play a role. And interventions can be in drug discovery, identifying the right target, optimizing the target, optimizing the structure, enabling blood-brain barrier, for example, penetration, enabling better affinity into the receptor, so you have better efficacy, you have better safety profile. And this is one part of the optimization acceleration. Another part is while you're running the trial, and I'm not going to mention the obvious protocol, optimization or informed consent optimization and so on. These are trivial now, but then going to, as I said, clinical trial site selection or indication identification, because we know that for a specific molecule or pathway, molecular pathway, you can have multiple indications, but the biologic relevance of each of these indications is different. So through AI, you select the right indication, and by that, you select perhaps the right subpopulations, you optimize the endpoints, you optimize the health assessments that you are putting on the table, and even afterwards, you're optimizing regulatory interactions, right? So you have AI to help you form highest quality answers that actually will decrease the back and forth between the company and the regulatory agency, and then again you improve acceleration of time. All these are techniques that we could be now applying and we could be now using for our clinical trials, and we are to diverse extent in the different companies we are, but we are still a little bit also framed in our own habits, in what worked in the past, in our in the past way of doing things, and the more we can advance into the new space, the better it will be for sure.
Well, thank you. That was an excellent answer, and good to hear, because that is part of what we're working on, what we're trying. So from there, again, very a question that covered the whole process of drug development, but again, luckily we have a lot of different angles in this panel. So with the next question, I would like to ask Professor Orlu, so how quickly, again, talking about the future, near future, far future, how quickly is your research on vulnerable patient groups becoming a reality? And have you maybe faced, or do you expect some ethical challenges as you get closer to personalized medicine?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think to answer the first part of your question, probably I should define my understanding about vulnerability, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you are talking about a patient profile where they are diagnosed at a late stage of an important life-threatening disease, which brings, yes, definitely the vulnerability. But again, we spoke about the healthy aging or biohacking in the morning session earlier today. I think we are also talking about this aging population, and we are talking about the frailty element. By definition, when a patient responds differently to a stressor, different than an adult, younger adult, for instance, just because of their age. And it's not necessarily meaning that their biological age is an indicator about their vulnerability, but maybe their kidney function, maybe their liver function in terms of the metabolism of that drug in the body is putting them in a quite vulnerable position, where you need to change the dose, what I'm referring to, where you need to change the strength of that medicine. So in a way, you really need to respond to the needs and tailor basically your medicinal product design to the individual in a quite smart manner. So on that note, as the formulation designer, we have been working on 3D printing, and I think we have done something quite meaningful, because we are looking into different kind of additive manufacturing technologies and merging them with the drug candidate with the right properties. Of course, we are not forgetting about that, I need to check the log P, the pKa, the molecular weight, the stability profile of that promising therapeutic compound, and I need to put it into the right context. But can I really tap into the sources of the AI and machine learning? Yes, we can, because we did a couple of studies where we were doing the in-house data kind of, application to understand the printability of the medicine, to reduce the time in the research lab in a PhD project, because you still have only 3 years for a PhD project, although maybe you are not really targeting for a marketing authorization of a new product, but you really would like your technologies to be adaptable and implementable for the real life, for a real impact. And in that context, then we felt like, why don't we use the synthetic data, as you mentioned earlier, and we fed our system, the machine learning, with some synthetic data to understand what type of excipients, polymers that we need to select for that drug compound, what type of processing parameters that we need to select in terms of the pressure, the heat, the nozzle, location, etc., to kind of bring all these parameters to really accelerate the drug design and development process with the aid of the machine learning technologies in a careful manner, I need to say. So we had lots of failures, by the way. I don't want to give you a very bright picture that, oh, it really reduces your time, and I'm talking about something, quite trendy, 3D printing. But if you are talking about the vulnerable populations, as you are asking, we are talking about populations where you need to alter the dose multiple times, and you really need to understand these technologies, basically potential, and also as well as I think the downsides. As you're all aware, the quality control measures are not there yet for 3D printing, for instance, but we are trying to understand, can I use the machine learning for predicting all these manufacturing process parameters, and can I also look into a handheld, for instance, near-infrared or Raman spectroscopy, or a integrated balance, with simple, more technical or complex kind of elements into the system to really make it happen and hopefully see the impact. So I don't have an example to say yet, but with my collaborators at UCL, we are looking into first clinical trials with 3D printing, for instance, for pediatric population, because on the other end of the age spectrum, you are talking maybe a population where the enzyme is not just working to metabolize that drug just because of the very young age. This is generally my question to my students: what do you mean by pediatrics? And then they say, oh, maybe the age of 2, the age of 3. No, actually it starts from premature babies up to the legal age in that country, up to 16 or 18. And when you look into the incentives given to industry, literally you are talking about an age spectrum 0 to 16 or 18. When you talk about a pediatric population, imagine all the subsets that you have in this population. Or you are talking about a very frail population when you look into the geriatrics. Or if you really need to maybe design a clinical trial batch for a rare metabolic disease in a clinical trial context, these type of, I think, activities around the machine learning, 3D printing, and all these emerging technologies might be more beneficial than the traditional approaches. So I think there are some promising points, but I also agree with the concerns in the field as well.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it as a question of, I didn't switch to industry that long ago. It was very recent. So I know when people ask you, like, how are you applying this? Where are the applications? I meant it more like, as you answered it, how quickly is it happening, and is it, that time scale, which you perfectly answered. Thank you. So with the next question, I would ask Mr. Mladenovic, how can we strategically make sure that the enterprise AI systems that we're setting up for collecting or actually managing this data and translating this into innovations that we're building today, how can we make sure that it scales up and we don't miss out on breakthroughs in the field?
Okay, that's a great question, and I try to answer on some of these problems and challenges which now we could resolve because technology bring us something new, not just AI in that sense. For example, when we are building such a big system which have to scale, we always recommend that infrastructure should be hybrid, meaning that we have something on private cloud and something on public cloud. Why so? Because on private cloud we are able to deal with data where we need some privacy, where we need to do some enrichments, and with public cloud we could easily scale to some, for example, additional GPUs, what is needed for AI models, or additional workloads in that sense, and this gives us ability to address some kind of future extensions and also integrations needed in that sense. Second, what is also important, what we could use is some kind of new architecture which we are using, which was also not possible in the past. Is one of these, especially for this kind of projects, is kind of data mesh architectures. This is essentially give us capability that, for example, data from people from Serbia we are preparing here. We are using raw data, enriching, doing this anonymization, etc., and giving that virtually without sending to some other location, to some other stakeholders, institutes, whatever, who needs that data on the research project in that sense. So this is also something what we recommend. Also, it was a question about or idea how to further improve something from clinical trials in clinical practice. So what we also could do is kind of to apply some explainable AI algorithms. So if we are able to explain at least to some extent why some therapy is working to the people who are doing practice, it will help to adopt this kind of novel solutions in that sense. And it is a hard problem because if you are using generative AI, these deep neural networks where learning is unknown for us in that sense, but there are some ways and some tools which could help to give some additional information in that area. And what we also trying to do these days in different industry is also to use this data which is unstructured. So we call it unstructured data penalty. So a lot of data which is hardly to use, hardly to get some answers, hardly to find some answers, and this also could help. For example, when you have to search, for example, for some novel methods of therapies in that sense through some kind of chatbot interfaces instead of searching some complex manuals in that direction. So it's also we should take advantage of this in clinical practice.
Great, thank you. And so with the last of the questions of the structured part of this discussion, I would like to ask Dr. Grigorjevic on essentially what are the next big breakthroughs in structural molecular biology? You know, we're talking about future, so we can leave some leeway for that. Last year, we got, well, not we, people got a Nobel Prize on their seminal work on protein folding prediction. So where are we heading with this? And maybe also how is this going to fit with drug development?
Well, the short answer, Ivan, is exactly the problems you're working on that will lead to the breakthrough. So you're certainly working on some challenging stuff. Well, I have to say, first of all, that the protein folding problem, that the fact that we lived through that era, to see that some of this purely computational work, the first time seeing a Nobel Prize for AI, was amazing for me, at least, because I was following the work of a lot of the David Baker. Because believe it or not, I'm just one step away from him, because when I came to New York about 10 years ago, I actually worked in a group as a postdoc of a professor who was his first PhD student. So all the knowledge I got from him, transferring now to you, it's something that was amazing, but also seeing exactly the impact of AI there, because that person worked on this problem for 30 years using physics-based methods, and it's only with these data-driven models, with this having to see more and more data and AI models, that we saw actually that big jump in the performance of these models and trying and getting these structure prediction folding models to work really there. But jokes aside, I think some of the very important things are still going to be dependent on data, I believe, and so we would have to first change a lot of the ways how we deal with the data, how we store the data, and I know I faced a lot of challenges the first time I came to the company, from people not registering the data, people not registering negative data, people not doing all these things, but that are extremely useful for these AI models. And then there is also a lot of stuff where you need to set aside resources just for data generation and just for these foundational models, AI models, so that you actually can build these models and they can generalize well across all your projects, your disease programs, your targets, etc. And one of the very, for example, good example I know that is just an initiative, for example, from the UK government, is that there is something called Open Bind. Right now, it's starting. A lot of actually companies are part of it, and academic institutions, and that's basically the initiative to triple the number of the crystal structures of the data points of, like, let's say, protein ligand interactions or protein-protein interactions, and by just having more data in that space, we are expecting that the performance of these AI models will drastically improve, and then we will see the next breakthrough. And the next breakthrough could be, let's say, de novo design, which is something that is extremely important, and it's basically starting from a target molecule, from a hypothesis, just design a molecule from scratch. You don't use any animal immunization campaigns, you don't use any of the library design, like you literally just plug in the stuff into your AI system and it generates the drug molecule. We've seen successes in other fields, in image, in computer vision, in NLP, for that things, because there is data there, a lot of data, very structured data, very well organized, a lot of companies have it. But pharma companies, we still have to do a lot of stuff, maybe change culturally how we do things, how we register stuff, such that we actually can train these models and then solve this de novo problem. And I don't know, dependency on animal, for example, studies right now that we have, and all these things. I think that will be something that this could drastically be changed. And it's luckily something that you are starting to work on. So that's a good thing. Maybe next time you're not going to be a moderator. Maybe in a few years you'll be talking about your
keynote.
Yeah, keynote. Of your breakthrough work.
Yeah, I'm very humble. Yes.
One more point on this. We are already seeing this booming, right, of AI first molecules that enter preclinical phase or clinical phase. There are numerous startups right now. The investment in the last 10 years around 18 billion, and the growth rate is 27%. One flag is that more than 50% of these AI first molecules are channeled towards oncology or COVID. So it leaves other therapeutic areas still underserved.
Is it because of the investments go that way?
I think it's because of traditional channeling of investments. Of course, it's because of high unmet need, but that means that certain areas that have been underserved for decades are still remaining underserved. And I'm hoping that we will see more balanced distribution of this AI first molecule technology and startup focus in the next years.
Great. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful point to finish the conversation on. Do we have time for questions from the audience? Yeah. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Any hands up? Yeah, there's one.
Hi. Could you tell us where do you think the good data for modeling, I mean, for the predictive models and machine learning would come from, like the variants? You mentioned the UK Open Bind, the UK initiative. There's a lot of attempt in using AI along the drug discovery pipeline, as Dr. Dimitrios mentioned, so that we have a need for a lot of good quality data. Do you have a feeling where should that come from? The public domain? Should the governments pay? Should the companies pay?
I don't know if it's a question. It's directed to me, I guess. So I can start. So right now we are actually combining everything we get. Everything we get from the public domain, like all the publicly available databases from all the publicly available repositories, that's basically goes into these models. And a lot of course, internal company proprietary data, at least in my company. But depending on which stage drug discovery process you are in, right? Like I said, a lot of stuff we can change just by changing the culture of how we do this, how we approach these projects, how we store the data, having in mind that now there might be an AI system reading this data, or maybe a big LLM model that will take your lab notebooks and basically compress them into some model, and then you'll be using all that knowledge somehow. People were not aware of this before, right? So of course the data is not in that shape right now. We're pretty sure that it's the same in every company like that. But I think a lot of changes we already introduced with all of these things, and depending on the model that the company has, for example, if it's really centralizing AI, and they want to build an AI department inside of the company, then they will try to change in every single department also the policies and the rules of how the data should be generated, stored, etc. But I think even if you do all of these things the right way, you're still dealing with biology, and a lot of assays that we run, especially in the late stage of the early drug discovery stage, are low throughput. So you just have a few molecules that are screened, for which you have some data. And that's the regime in which AI models cannot work really well. So you need to either invest some time in, or money or whatever, like into really some exploration of that space, either through some proxy assays or some other kind of technologies or new invention of the technology. So I guess what I'm saying is that there should be, in parallel with AI, also other technologies that are kind of generating more high throughput, high quality data sets. But there's of course a lot of stuff we need to change in the companies, or are currently changing, such that we can actually have these foundational data sets, historical data set from everything before that was used in the company that we're trying to do. So for example, a lot of my work, I thought I'm going to be doing AI and ML stuff, but actually I had to spend a lot of time cleaning up and preparing the data first, such that we can actually see that impact. But other initiatives are very interesting to follow, because crystallography data, like crystal structures of molecules, very limited right now in a public domain. But I feel like if we put some kind of consortium between different companies, I think this could really benefit everyone, because then we can actually just do this independently from projects. So one of the, I'm going to finish with this, sorry. One of the very important things is that right now every company runs their own portfolio projects and so on. And so they are running on that, on that budget to deliver these molecules. And they are not investing that much maybe in setting aside resources to generate that data outside of these projects. And that's what we need, I think. And so companies that realize that faster, they would probably get better AI tools, I guess, is my guess.
Yeah, I would like to add to this. I don't want to sound super rich, but I don't believe that the biggest problem is the money and who's paying for it. I think my colleagues and my co-panelists have mentioned the biggest problems. And you mentioned government or academia. Each one can play a different role, right? The role that government can play is, for example, enabling through the legal system the access to unified data. Yeah, because we are still in a very strict regulatory environment that actually creates this fragmentation or enables this fragmentation. This is one thing. Then consortium and agreement that can be in place can be the vehicle of co-funding, and then companies would love to invest in data. There's not a better asset for us in the private sector to invest. So it wouldn't be the money issue, but then we need to put databases together that speak with each other and can be unified. We need to have clear databases. We need to have capabilities in the teams that are inputting the data, right? Because if we pay, we need to pay for something that we can use and we can extract value. So if the overall ecosystem works towards one goal, to have a unified database with abundance of data that everybody can access to use for the ethical and the right causes, as we will agree in the consortium, then I think the money will be found.
Great. I think that's a wrap up on that question. Do we have time for more? Or one more question? No? Okay. Well, I guess then we can thank our wonderful panelists, and thank you for the discussion. Thank you for being here.